today. Totally different story from what we had last year.
No, absolutely. You're right. We're taking a look back at a far different scene, as Aaron said, from exactly 1 year ago today. That's when historic tornadoes tore through parts of Iowa and Minnesota. And our KIMT Storm Team 3 meteorologists, including Aaron White here, are showing us the lasting impacts of those storms.
It was a wild day for weather 1 year ago today as a line of thunderstorms producing damaging winds and tornadoes ripped across Iowa and Minnesota.
This is moving towards New Richland, Heartland, Ellendale, and Manchester very, very quickly, 80 miles per hour.
One of the communities most greatly impacted was Heartland, Minnesota. Meteorologist Sean McAday recently visited Heartland to see how the community has rebuilt and recovered after 1 year.
It was about 1 year ago today that in this small community of Heartland, Minnesota, an EF2 tornado ripped through the center of town, damaging several buildings like what you see behind me here on the corner of Johnson Street and Broadway. And while there are still signs and scars from that day 1 year ago, it is obvious looking around town that some progress has been made. Several houses damaged in the storm now sport new sidings and repairs. This building on Broadway has ongoing construction being done. Yet, there remains some evidence of the tornado that swept through. A piece of metal stuck 30 feet high in a tree watches over the small town. And where the Farmers State Bank once stood, a year later stands nothing but this blank foundation, a leftover electrical line, a broken tree branch, and a bent road sign for Freeborn County Route 33. But Heartland was not the only community impacted by a tornado. While Heartland was being damaged, another small town across the border was dealing with their own mess. Chief Meteorologist Aaron White visited Rudd, Iowa to check in on how the town has recovered a year after taking a direct hit from a tornado.
The small town of Rudd in northern Floyd County was struck by an EF1 tornado that night, damaging several buildings, destroying the public library, and knocking out the town's tornado siren. Since that night, buildings have been repaired and a new tornado siren, generously donated by Joe Goddard Enterprises of Oklahoma, stands tall, ready to get to work for the next severe weather season. I recently visited Rudd to see how the town is faring after 1 year of recovery. I spoke with Amy Lehman, who volunteers at the Rudd Public Library, and here's what she had to say about that night 1 year ago.
And it's still kind of surreal to this point because, you know, where I live, we didn't have any damage, but 3 blocks away, the town was destroyed.
The library remains temporarily set up in the Rudd City Hall building, but hopes to have a new building constructed soon.
After almost a year of planning and designing and trying to fit the budget that we could handle, we've come to a design that we are now ready to present to City Council in hopes that they approve it and we can keep moving forward on our project.
And in the hopes of moving forward with their project, Amy showed me where they plan to build the new library once they have all the funding they need for the current design. While volunteers like Amy and others in Rudd have been actively working to rebuild over the past year, the National Weather Service has been analyzing data to learn more about how such a historic storm evolved. Meteorologist Sarah Knox spoke with the Weather Service office in La Crosse about that night and what they have learned since then.
December 15th, 2021 was one of those, you just got a growing pit in your stomach as we were looking at the meteorological data coming in, the forecast for it. It was just clear that every day that passed, this was going to be an unprecedented storm system that came through.
What did your office learn from this day?
We really learned how to better message these extreme events and use that attention-grabbing wording. Had a well-coordinated staffing plan that we learned worked really well. Just assigning people to their roles when they walked in the door, they knew what they were going to be doing during that event.
The National Weather Service and our team here at KIMT have taken steps to learn from that storm, made improvements in how we forecast and effectively communicating critical severe weather information. And while we know severe weather will strike again in the future, it won't change the resilience of the people of Iowa and Minnesota as we come together to rebuild.
We're proud to say KIMT News 3 Daybreak won an Emmy Award for our coverage of the December 15th storms. We want you to know KIMT News 3 is a source you can trust for any breaking news, weather, and sports.